Hey everybody, welcome to Run, Jump, Stomp, a podcast about games because we needed another. You can find the show notes for this episode, as well as other content at runjumpstomp.com. This is episode 27 for the week of August 18th. That's right, 18th, not 18th. 2015. 2015. I'm Bill, your host, and this week, we'll be talking about Rainbow Six getting delayed. The Star Wars themed PS4 is disappointing. Twitch Plays Dark, however, is ridiculous. And Nintendo fires a Treehouse employee after he appears on a podcast or two. Those stories, plus the long play and more on this episode of Run, Jump, Stomp. Thanks for listening. Team-based tactical shooters aren't really my thing because I'm bad at them. I feel like whenever I'm on the doing the podcast, I'm explaining why I'm so bad at so many different types of games. I can't figure out if there's a type of game that I'm good at, but tactical shooters are not one of them. Mostly because I'm not super interested in it. I think that if I had a regular team of people to play it with, then that would, my tune would probably change and I would get better at it. But usually, I end up pugging it. Now, for those of you who don't play massively multiplayer games, pug is a term for a pickup group. So usually if I play a squad-based tactical shooter, I'm playing with people who I don't know and I can't talk to. I guess the kind of games that I'm good at are MMOs. That's because you're usually with the same group of people most of the time. Usually your guild. My guild doesn't really play this type of game, so therefore I don't get a lot of practice at it. That being said, let's talk a little bit about Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. Now, I have played some of these games in the past. I haven't played all of them. And what I can say about them is that they're very well received and they're very fun. If you're good at them. Okay? Now, the newest one, which is, let's see, it's supposed to come out in October, Rainbow Six Siege. We're supposed to get it in October, but now it has been shifted to December 1st. The reason was as actually fan feedback, which I find awesome. I love when developers listen to fans. I don't think it happens often enough, but I like when it happens a lot. Okay? The quote here says, "Whether it's been through playtests in our studios, the closed alpha, or the recent hands-on demos at events like E3 or Gamescom, which was a couple weeks ago, player feedback has been essential to the development process of Rainbow Six Siege. Getting the game in people's hands and listening to what they have to say helps us understand how we can improve their experience, and we'd like to thank everyone who's taken part in that process so far. This wasn't an easy decision, but based on the feedback we've received and based on our own internal tests, we felt that there are adjustments and improvements that we can make, including improving the co-op experience across all game modes, weapon and gadget balancing, as well as menu and interface navigation. We're taking a little more time to make these changes, and we think that's the right call." And I agree. If there is any doubt about whether or not the game is ready, then a delay is the right call. I think that Shigeru Miyamoto, I think that this is who said it. I think he said it best. He said that a rushed game will always be a bad game. A delayed game will someday be a good game. And that is exactly what these developers at Ubisoft must be having in mind when they decided to delay their game. So it looks like people are going to have to wait a couple more months to get Rainbow Six Siege, and that is a good thing. With Star Wars Battlefront on the way, and Disney Infinity 3.0, which is featuring Star Wars characters, also on the way, Sony decided to put out a PS4 bundle that features a Star Wars theme. Now, this hasn't this has been done before. The Xbox 360 had a bundle that was Star Wars themed, and I dare say that the Xbox 360's version was incredibly better. The Sony one just looks like, it almost looks like someone bought a decal and kind of just pasted the decal onto the PS4 and then used, like, I don't know, some model paint to paint a little bit of red on the buttons. It's really ridiculous. So basically, when you look at this thing, I mean, the PS4 is black, and Darth Vader has a black outfit, so, you know, those two things go hand in hand, but just putting a picture of Darth Vader on it doesn't make it a theme. Now, take a look at and I'll have a link to it in the show notes, but if you take a look at the Xbox 360 that was Star Wars themed, they went all out. That Xbox 360 looked like R2-D2. Okay? The controller was the same gold color as C-3PO. And they even went so far as to, if you are a fan of Star Wars, you know that one of C-3PO's lower legs is silver instead of gold. So they made the D-pad on the Xbox 360 controller silver instead of gold. You know, it's details like that that make it really pop out and make a themed console look awesome. Now, is this a big deal? It's certainly not a big deal. It's a very slow news week this week, but the PS4 with Star Wars theme is just very disappointing. So take a look at it. What do you guys think? Am I being overly critical? Do you like it? Do you hate it? If you didn't see Twitch Plays Pokemon, which was earlier this year, or maybe it was last year. I can't remember when Twitch Plays Pokemon came out, but if you didn't see it, then you've got to go check out, like, I hope that there's video that you can find of it, because it was a ridiculous phenomenon where somebody had set up a Nintendo system, my brain stopped working, a Game Boy, there we go. Somebody had set up a Game Boy to respond to inputs from Twitch chat. And then they put the Game Boy on the screen and the game was playing Pokemon. I'm not sure if it was red or blue, but it was one of them. Okay? And basically what would happen is everybody in chat would start spamming the thing that they wanted it to do next. Now, they couldn't use complex things like go over there. They were actually calling out the commands that you would have to input on the controls. So you would say up, left, B, start, down, that kind of thing. So that was Twitch Plays Pokemon. And it managed to, I'm not positive, but I think it actually finished all of the Pokemon games, capturing, at least in the first one, I know that the first one, they captured all 151 Pokemon. Imagine trying to do that with thousands of other people also typing in the commands at the same time. You can get how it would be very difficult to actually accomplish anything. Now, they did have a cheat system in place, and I don't think of it as a cheat. I think that it would be impossible without this, but I could be wrong. But they had a cheat system into place where every once in a while, I think they had two modes. They had Anarchy mode, I think it was called, and I could be wrong. And then I'm just going to call it voting mode. I can't remember what it was called. But the way that it worked, in Anarchy mode, it would just do whatever anybody said. So everybody would, you know, if everybody was saying up, down, left, right, it would do all of those things. It would use all of those inputs. Then it had voting mode where it would say, all right, what's the next move is going to be? This. And everybody votes on what the next move is going to be. So everybody would vote, and then it would do the next thing. And I think that helped it actually complete the game, because otherwise you get many trolls that will try and get the game deleted or, something like that. So Twitch Plays Pokemon, very successful, is really awesome. Nintendo kind of dropped the ball by not embracing it. They just kind of ignored it like they ignore everything. But that's because Nintendo doesn't want to admit that there's a way that video sites can help promote your games. Especially since they brought out a Pokemon game last year. Or this year, I mean. 8 months ago, I think. So maybe it was I think it was in December that Pokemon Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire came out. And they really could have used Twitch Plays Pokemon to promote it. You know? But they didn't, and that's what Nintendo does. But that's beside the point. The reason I'm talking about Twitch Plays Pokemon, and even though it happened forever ago, is because Twitch is now playing Dark Souls. So somebody had, and I'm not sure if it's the same people, but somebody set up a Twitch Plays Dark Souls game. And Dark Souls is, I've not played it, but I've been told it's incredibly difficult. Very, very high level of difficulty for Dark Souls. And that's one of the things that people like about it. Well, you take that and you put it together with the idea of not crowdfunding, but crowdsourcing the inputs for the game, and you're going to have a hard time beating that game. Now, so far, I checked a little while ago, and it's been playing for over 4 days now. Now, I've not played the game, so I don't know how far into the game they are, but basically, they've got the controls mapped out. You scroll down on the Twitch Plays Dark site, and it says, all right, if you want it to do this, then you say RF. That's for right forward. If you want it to do this, then you say that. So just like Twitch Plays Pokemon, you've got a chat full of people shouting out what they want it to do, and it's doing it. So we'll see if that gets anywhere. I definitely recommend you check out Twitch Plays Dark Souls to see just how ridiculous and awesome things on the internet can be. Now, I kind of buried the lead here, and I didn't do it on purpose. It's because it happened a while back, and I actually, when this story happened, it was such a big deal. Well, not such a big deal. It was such a big story that I thought to myself, you're not going to forget this, so you don't need to email it to yourself to remind yourself to look. And then I forgot about it, of course, because that's what you do when you say that you'll remember. You say, I'll remember that, and then you don't. That's how my brain works anyway. But Nintendo fired a localizer. Now, when I say a localizer, basically what that means is they're translators. So Nintendo has the Treehouse team, and their job is to take Nintendo games, which are made in Japan, and localize them or translate them into various languages. I know that they have to translate it to English. I don't know if Nintendo Treehouse also is the ones that translate it to other languages. Like, do they have another team for that? I don't know off the top of my head. But one of the localizers went on a podcast. He went on the Part-Time Gamer podcast, and the guy's name is Chris Pranger. He worked at the Treehouse, and his job was to work with Nintendo on translating games, and I don't know his exact role in the Treehouse, but that's where he worked. And he went on a podcast to talk about his job. Now, there's been lots of Nintendo employees that have gone on podcasts, but here's the thing. He didn't get permission from the PR guys before he went. And Nintendo has a pretty big rule about that, so they canned him. He announced it on, I think he announced it first on Facebook, I guess, but then he also announced it on Twitter, and that's where I actually saw it. He said, as some of you may have heard, yes, I was fired yesterday. Yes, it was ultimately my own fault. No, I did not see this coming. So he said, it's probably okay for me to go on this podcast. He went, and then it turns out that it wasn't okay. I guess Nintendo said that they're not going to comment on this, and of course they should not. So when he was on the podcast, what did he say that made Nintendo have to fire him? Well, basically, he was answering questions that he was being asked, and that's great. and I guess he said things like, this game is very Japanese. And people were saying things like, okay, I want this game. Why won't Nintendo Treehouse translate this game for us? Don't you want money? And so then he would say, well, yeah, we do want money, which is why we know it's a colossal waste to localize this game in its current market. Because look at you people. You don't make up a big enough group. He's got a point. I don't disagree with what he's saying, but it's not really the most tactful way to do it. And if he had gone through PR, they probably would have said, listen, this is what you can talk about. This is what you can't talk about. He went on to say things like, you look at something like Xenoblade Chronicles. People love that game within a certain group. That game is not the type of game that just pulls in enough to justify the costs on that. We got it in the States by luck. Nintendo of America decided, we'll take the bullet, we'll localize that game. Because somebody is going to have to eat the cost somewhere. Because the game is guaranteed not to sell enough to justify how big of a game it is. You know, hundreds of hours, all voiced. That's a lot of money that goes into that. So what he's basically saying is, look, translating a game or localizing a game is a very expensive process. So when a company like Nintendo says, well, we're only going to have this game in Japan, and the people who look at that game and they say, that is a game that is made for me. I want that game. It looks awesome. Why won't you bring it here? Take my money, please. He's saying, look, we would love to take your money, but in order to break even, we would need a lot more people than you to buy this game. And this game just doesn't appeal to that large of a group of people over there. That's why he said it's very Japanese. There's a lot of games that Nintendo puts out that are quote-unquote very Japanese. When you look at it, you're like, man, that is weird. This is a weird game. I don't understand this game. And that's because it's quote-unquote very Japanese. Now, that might seem like not a nice thing to say, but it's true. At another point, he was also talking about Uncharted 4, and he said he's not supposed to say nice things about our competitors, implying that that's a Nintendo policy. That's really not the kind of thing you want to say unless you've got the okay from your PR people. So I agree with him. It is his fault, and it's a shame that he got fired for that. I wish him the best, just like Nintendo did. Nintendo said they wish him the best. But it was definitely things that you don't want to say, especially when you are working for a company as secretive as Nintendo. This week on the long play, I played Xeodrifter, which, if you have not heard of it, it's a Metroidvania style game. A lot of back and forth traveling. You travel to this place, you get an item, and as soon as you get that item, you know, oh, well, hold on a sec. I know that I can use this item in this one place that I saw earlier, so then you can go back over to that place. It's got really tight controls. Unfortunately, I'm playing on an Xbox 360 controller, and the D-pad on the 360 controller is really awful. I hate it. I've always hated the D-pad on the 360 controller. I can't wait to see how the Steam controller works with games like this. It's got that huge D-pad. I think that might be awful. I have an old, not an old, but I have a USB version of a Super Nintendo controller. I couldn't get it to work with it. I'm going to do a little more research and see if I can get that to work with it, because it's definitely that kind of controller game. The game's got really great graphics, and I really like the music and sound effects in the game. Those are, it's got a bunch of pluses. It's got a couple minuses, though. Most of the time in games like this, you really do have a choice where to go first. And in this game, there really is no choice. You've got to go to the right place first, because all of the other places are literally blocked off. And there's nothing that directs you to go to the right place first. For instance, The first world I went to was a water world, so there's 4 planets to choose from, and I chose the blue one. I landed on it. I jump in the water, and I can't swim. There's nothing that indicates that I shouldn't be able to swim. There's a wall across from me. I try shooting it. I can't get through it. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not supposed to come here first. If it's going to be set up in a way that I obviously can't go there, then just tell me, don't go here yet, because you can't, or make it so when I try to go there, it pops up a thing that says you need this first before you can come here. I'm like, okay, that's fine. If any of that area was explorable without the right item, then I would be fine. Let me go there and explore a little bit, fight a couple of enemies, and then after that, let me figure out that I can't progress without a certain item. But, like, the world was literally, you land, and there is a pool of water and a wall, and there's nothing else that you can do. That just didn't seem like very good design to me. My other gripe with the game is the boss. And I say boss, I have not finished the game yet, but so far I've I've fought 3 bosses, and all 3 bosses are the same boss. They are literally the same boss with slightly different tactics. And that just feels cheap. It feels rushed. That being said, the boss fight is still fun. It just would be nice if there was a little variety. And because there's so little variety in it, it just feels cheap. I was streaming it when I was playing, and one of the people who were watching, they actually said, "Really? This boss again?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know, man. That's a little weak." However, I cannot complain because I got the game when it was on sale for $3. Unfortunately, the sale is now over. It's back up to $10. Would I get it for $10? Probably not. Although it's really good and the graphics are good. It's very 8-bit, somewhere between 8 and 16-bit style graphics, and somewhere between 8 and 16-bit style sound. It's definitely fun. The controls are fun. It just seems like it's not worth $10. And maybe that's not fair of me, but I bought it for $3 and I'm really happy with it. I don't know if I would be as happy if I had spent 10. This week I'm adding Hob from Runic Games to the wish list. If you are unfamiliar with Runic Games, they made Torchlight. I guess, and Torchlight 2. I guess some people would call those Diablo clones, but I think it's too much of an oversimplification for such a fantastic game. They really brought a lot of features to the game that needed to be there. Like, there's one thing that really stands out, and that's that you have a pet with you, and the pet can carry stuff for you, and they can also head back to town and sell, which is a fantastic, a really great feature. Now, Hob is not a game like Torchlight. It does have the kind of a top-down feel to it, but it looks more like an adventure than like a dungeon crawler. And if you go to the website, which is linked in the show notes, they've got a quick trailer on there. But if you scroll down, they say a very interesting thing. It says that Hob is presented without text or dialogue. Narrative is revealed as players explore and interact with their unfamiliar surroundings and the strange life forms that it inhabit it. Can't read today. The third title from the developer Runic Games, Hob, is being developed for PC and console, featuring smooth controller gameplay, multi-layered puzzles, and striking visuals. And it does look really cool, so we're definitely going to add that to the wish list. Well, that is it for the show this week. If you want to support the show, you can do so with a review on iTunes. Go ahead and give me that feedback. I'd love to hear... No. Well, that's it for the show this week. If you want to support the show, the best way that you can do so is by giving us a review on iTunes. If you want to be part of the show, you can email me at runjumpstomp@gmail.com, or you can call 260-RUN-JUMP. That's 260-786-5867. You can also find me on Twitter and YouTube at RunJumpStomp. As always, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. This week's music is from the Zircon collection. It's called Super Metroid, Ashes to Ashes, and you can find a link in the show notes to get more music from Zircon.